Brandon was a high school senior living in the quiet suburb of Metairie, Louisiana. He had a passion for cars, often spending hours working on engines and dreaming of opening his own auto repair shop. He lived with his blind grandmother, Mabel, whom he cared for with maturity beyond his years. Alongside school and his part-time job at a local shop, Brandon managed his responsibilities without complaint, gaining the admiration of his neighbors. For 2 years, Brandon had been dating Leigh Gerard, a bright and ambitious girl who shared his dreams of a future together. They talked about marriage and starting a family, often enjoying dates at Café du Monde. From the outside, Brandon and Leigh seemed destined for a happy life. But Brandon harbored a dark secret. He was having an affair with Leigh's mother, Paulette Gerard, a 43-year-old woman who ran a successful multi-level marketing business. Paulette was attractive and ambitious, but her relationship with her daughter was strained, with competition often fueling tension between them. On August 12, 2021, Brandon's life came to a tragic end. That morning, his grandmother Mabel noticed something was wrong when she didn't hear him moving around the house. Concerned, she called a neighbor, Mrs. Dupree, for help. Upon entering the house, Mrs. Dupree discovered a gruesome scene: Brandon's lifeless body on the floor, covered in blood from multiple stab wounds. The attack had been brutal, with his eyes nearly gouged out, and the knife was still lying next to him. The police arrived shortly after the 911 call, led by Detective Michael Dubel. The crime scene, marked by extreme violence, pointed to something deeply personal. Dubel quickly focused on Paulette Gerard as a prime suspect, believing that the affair might have led to a passionate, violent confrontation. The murder of Brandon, a young man with so much potential, left the Metairie community in shock, and the investigation into the brutal crime revealed the dark complexities beneath the surface of seemingly ordinary lives. Some locals whispered that Paulette's business was a scam, but she brushed off the criticism, enjoying both the financial rewards and the attention it brought. Paulette had a complicated relationship with her daughter, Leigh. Although they seemed close, friends noticed underlying tension, often fueled by Paulette's jealousy of Leigh's youth and beauty. This rivalry escalated when Paulette began a secret affair with Leigh's boyfriend, Brandon Tyatt. The affair, though discreet, was a dangerous secret that could shatter their lives. Paulette justified the affair as a way to reclaim her youth, but it was clear her obsession with Brandon had grown dangerously intense. When detectives Dubel and Martinez questioned her about Brandon's murder, Paulette appeared composed, dressed in an impeccable pantsuit, but her nervousness was evident in her eyes. Initially, she described Brandon as charming and downplayed their relationship, referring to him as just her daughter's boyfriend. However, when the detectives pressed her about the affair, her demeanor shifted. She became defensive and shortened her responses, ultimately breaking down in tears when confronted with evidence. She confessed to the affair but vehemently denied any involvement in Brandon's death, crying, "He was my angel. I would never hurt him." Despite her emotional outburst, Detective Dubel remained unconvinced. Paulette's obsession with Brandon and her jealousy toward Leigh made her a prime suspect. The detectives also questioned Leigh, an 18-year-old who had recently graduated high school and was preparing for college. Described as bright and kind-hearted, Leigh had been deeply in love with Brandon. They had plans to marry after she completed school, which excited both families. However, discovering her mother's affair shattered her. During her interrogation, Leigh appeared emotionally drained, wearing a t-shirt from her high school, her pain making her seem younger than her years. She tearfully recounted how she had stumbled upon explicit messages between her mother and Brandon, sparking a fierce argument. Despite the betrayal, Leigh claimed she still loved Brandon and wanted to move past it. When asked about her whereabouts on the night of the murder, Leigh said she had been at a friend's sleepover, but her story grew vague under further questioning. Her friend Taylor confirmed she had been there, but noted that Leigh had left around midnight, hours before the murder occurred. As the detectives pressed, Leigh's demeanor changed from sorrow to defensiveness, denying any involvement in Brandon's death. However, her trembling hands and emotional breakdown, when shown further evidence, raised suspicions about whether her tears were for loss or guilt. Throughout her questioning, Leigh maintained her innocence, insisting she could never commit murder, despite her evident anger and heartbreak. Despite Leigh's emotional state and unclear alibi, Detective Dubel remained doubtful. The investigation also focused on Richard Gerard, Leigh's father and Paulette's husband, a 47-year-old lawyer known for his sharp legal skills. Richard was often absent from home due to his demanding career. He valued the appearance of a perfect family, but turned a blind eye to the underlying tensions, particularly the disturbing dynamic between Paulette and Leigh. Richard had long suspected Paulette's inappropriate behavior with other men, but chose to ignore it, hoping it would resolve on its own. When detectives questioned him, Richard appeared calm and composed, dressed as if for court. He described his marriage to Paulette as complicated but insisted they maintained a strong bond, including a regular sex life. His relationship with Leigh, though less close, was, according to him, typical for a busy father. However, when asked about Brandon, Richard's demeanor changed. He admitted he liked Brandon and considered him a good match for Leigh. But when confronted with the affair between Brandon and Paulette, Richard grew visibly tense. He claimed ignorance, insisting he would have stopped it had he known, and provided an alibi for the night of the murder, stating he was working late at the office. Though his colleagues could confirm this, Richard's defensive tone and emotional distance raised suspicions. Detectives Dubel and Martinez couldn't shake the feeling that Richard was hiding something, perhaps to protect his family's reputation. His evasiveness and reluctance to discuss the affair left them uneasy. In mid-August 2021, a crucial tip came in. Around 3 p.m., Detective Dubel received a call from an anonymous informant, claiming to have critical information about Paulette Girard. The informant hinted at something far more sinister than an affair, a dark secret Paulette had been hiding for years. The detectives wasted no time and headed to Paulette's office, located in a small, discreet building on the outskirts of Metairie. The sign on the door read Beauty B, the name of the multi-level marketing company Paulette had been running for nearly a decade. And from the outside, it looked like any ordinary business, but inside, the detectives were about to uncover a disturbing twist. Upon entering, they were struck by the eerie silence. The office was packed with beauty products, creams, lotions, and makeup, but there were no employees in sight. Detective Martinez noticed a locked door at the back. After some persuasion, Paulette's young, nervous assistant reluctantly handed over the key. Behind the door was Paulette's private office, and what the detectives found was both shocking and revealing. The walls were plastered with photographs of Brandon, many of them sexually explicit and inappropriate. In one corner, there was a makeshift altar dedicated to him, complete with candles, trinkets, and handwritten notes. Paulette's obsession with Brandon was far beyond a simple affair. It was dangerously obsessive. But the surprises didn't end there. While searching, the detectives uncovered documents that exposed the dark side of Beauty B. The company wasn't just a business, it was a scam, exploiting poor women from the South, many of them single mothers in financial distress. Paulette had manipulated these women into investing thousands of dollars in unsellable beauty products, forcing them to work up to 20 hours a day to pay off mounting debts. The financial devastation left hundreds of lives in ruin. This discovery provided the detectives with a new motive. Paulette's fraudulent schemes and her obsessive love for Brandon created immense pressure enough, they believed, to drive her to murder. With this new evidence, the police began to see Paulette Girard for who she truly was, a woman willing to protect her secrets at any cost, even if it meant killing. By August 21st, 2021, the police had gathered enough evidence to act. Paulette, consumed by jealousy and fear of losing control over Brandon, had confronted him on the night of the murder in her grandmother's kitchen, a place they had shared for secret encounters. In a fit of rage, Paulette had grabbed a kitchen knife and stabbed Brandon multiple times, leaving him with deep wounds and his eyes nearly gouged out. After the murder, Paulette tried to cover her tracks, but her obsessive behavior and fraudulent activities ultimately led the detectives straight to her. Early on the morning of August 21st, as the sun rose over Metairie, the police arrived at Paulette's luxurious suburban home. She answered the door in silk pajamas, clearly unprepared for what was coming. The detectives calmly informed her she was under arrest for Brandon Thibaud's murder. Paulette's reaction was a mix of shock and defiance, but her composure faltered, panic flashing in her eyes as she was handcuffed and led away. The neighbors watched in disbelief as Paulette Girard, once seen as a successful businesswoman. The trial of Paulette Girard for the murder of Brandon Thibaud began on November 8, 2021. The case garnered significant media attention, and the courtroom was packed with spectators. District Assistant Prosecutor Mark Tudor painted Paulette as a woman driven by obsessive love, who killed Brandon in a jealous rage. He also exposed her fraudulent schemes at Beauty B, further tarnishing her image. On the defense was Charles Chuck Lemon, a seasoned lawyer who argued that the evidence was circumstantial, suggesting that someone else, possibly even Paulette's daughter Leigh, could have committed the crime. But the physical evidence and disturbing nature of Paulette's obsession were undeniable. The trial reached its conclusion on November 22, 2021. After just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury found Paulette Girard guilty of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Brandon's family, though relieved by the verdict, continued to grapple with the pain of their loss. In the aftermath, Beauty Bee shut down, its predatory practices fully exposed. Pollitt's husband, Richard, withdrew from public life, and her daughter, Lee, devastated by her mother's betrayal, left Metairie to start anew. The trial and its revelations left an indelible mark on the community, a haunting reminder of how one person's dark obsessions can destroy countless lives. In the aftermath of Brandon Thiebaud's tragic murder, the Metairie community was left grappling with the far-reaching consequences. What began as a hidden affair had spiraled into a nightmare that shattered lives and shocked the town. Brandon's death sent ripples far beyond his family and close friends, forever changing the perception of those involved. The Girard family home, once a lively center of social activity, now stood as a symbol of a broken and desolate past. Pauline Girard, who had once been celebrated for her entrepreneurial spirit and charisma, was now infamous as a murderer, consumed by obsession. Her downfall led not only to the brutal end of Brandon's young life, but also to the collapse of Beauty Bee, the multi-level marketing company she had used to exploit vulnerable women. The company's closure, following intense investigations, left many of its members financially devastated, a grim reminder of the hidden dangers behind deceptive businesses. The public watched closely as Paulitte's husband, Richard Girard, struggled to maintain a semblance of normalcy. His once prominent legal career was overshadowed by the scandal, and his social presence dwindled as the weight of his wife's crimes tarnished his reputation. He withdrew from public life, haunted by whispers of the tragedy that had enveloped his family. For Lee Girard, the aftermath was even more personal and painful. Her mother's betrayal and her boyfriend's violent murder left scars she could never fully escape. Though she tried to start anew, moving away from Metairie and its painful memories, Lee was forever changed. Friends who once saw her as a bright and ambitious young woman now described her as someone marked by sorrow, her vibrancy dulled by the trauma of losing those she trusted most. The detectives who worked tirelessly to solve Brandon's murder were left grappling with the emotional toll of the case as well. Detective Double and Detective Martinez had uncovered the devastating truth behind the crime, but the gruesome details and the emotional weight of the investigation stayed with them long after the trial concluded. Though they achieved justice for Brandon, the case became one of the most challenging and haunting of their careers. Ultimately, Brandon Thiebaud's story serves as a cautionary tale of unchecked desire, obsession, and betrayal. The tragedy shook Metairie to its core, leaving behind a wound that would take years to heal. Though the community began to rebuild in the wake of the trial, the memory of the case and its impact would remain indelible, a lasting reminder of the darkness that can lurk beneath even the most seemingly perfect lives. Stay glued to this channel for more crime stories. Like, comment, and share thoughts on the story. True Crime Pulse, thank you.